Okay. Okay, that's good, I think. I have 40 something slides in here. Yeah, just put, what we do and at the long-term research site. And from time to time, pros also help train paranormal enthusiasts. Um, Ron mentored Billy Peel, who served as the EVP technician for the TV show The Rip Files. So you can look that up. That's a fact. And then I received guidance from Dennis Houck, the consultant for the movie White Noise. Yep. 2005, I believe. And then I think I'm gonna. I think there's a way I can move this whole thing. Let's see. Oh, well, it appears, but it's not really a spirit, Clint. Um, it's what you call pareidoia, where think you're looking at a spirit, but you're not. You know. You know. And then okay, and then the other thing is looking at that picture. What do you think that red thing is there, Clint, in the middle? What does it look like? It's maybe an orb or something? Well, what it really happens a lot of time is right behind that, you can barely see it there, um, is a Dr. Pepper can. When you use the flash, it creates a blur, and the digital camera um, can't always identify it and put it into what we would call something that makes sense. And so it's a blur. So it's a reflection off a Dr. Pepper can there. And then, is this an orb or could it be something else? And no, if you go look at that chair, you can see at the corner of the chair there, to the right, you can see a reflection. And what happens is that grows across the lens, so it's shining and it's shining across the lens, and that's what it is. Yeah, there's activity there. We had the location for 10 years, and 7 years we had live cameras in there. And it says the three previous photos were artifacts slash anomalies created by light reflections on the lens. Light plays a significant role in creating such pictures. Insects, dust, etc. Millions of airborne particles in every location. So, how lucky are you? So this tells you this is what Sony used to put out about digital cameras and those spots of dust showing up, and exactly how it's created with the cameras because the flash is too close to the lens, so it illuminates the dust in front of the lens. It might be a half an inch or so away, and depending upon the size of the particle, that it illuminates it, and now you have these white out of focus dust points. But a lot of people think they're ghosts. They're not. And then here looks like a manifestation or something. A lot of people see these in pictures and think it's a spirit. I would say it's most likely um, due to the contour of this lamp up here, that it's shining light down and through the lens because it's above us. The sun has the same effect sometimes. So you have to question those. A lot of people that are ghost hunters, Clint, they would take those pictures and fight you to the end that what you captured or what they captured was paranormal phenomena. But you got to remember, I've done audio video and I know better. Well, it's reflection on the lens, you know. It's blurred, it's a wide surface, you know. And then pros, strongest, and best proof electronic voice phenomena. Why? Well, EVP can be captured anywhere because the microphone catches sound from above you, below you, and around you at all angles, 360 degrees. Where a camera is, I don't know exactly what it is, but it's not 360 degrees, you know? Um, so the voices of EVP, they claim to be ghosts, aliens, angels, demons, and even artificial intelligence and more. And then EVP is classified A, B, and C, and it's based on how clear they are. And Rodive was the one, Konstantin Rodive was the one that came up with this scale. ITC is audio captured through devices like Ghostbox, and I have plenty of those. I showed them back, I think, in the other slide. ICT audio captured through Ghostboxes. Okay, let's see. EVP has been studied under scientific research. The voices are all unknown when it's true EVP, you know. Typically, we can debunk some of it, you know, but some of it we cannot debunk. Been actually captured in Faraday cages. So, you know, one notable tool that we use is TLD 100 in conjunction with looking for EVP. Shines a green light on the wall, and that's average temperature, and then blue for cooler and red. So we'd ask them a lot of times to change that light to a different color, you know. So we would get them to say things like red and green or whatever. I've actually got some. And then what's the origin of it all? Whether it's, you know, ghosts and UFOs, cryptids, aliens, in mysterious locations like the Devil's Triangles. Notice there's more than one. You know, some explanations might line the concept of the multiverse, other real dimensions, and other places that we don't know of. And people do report going into those things. And then quantum mechanics is being explored as a means to better understand these different aspects of our reality. You can look it all up. Geometry appears to play a significant role in addressing the unknown. So, some examples of geometry found in our universe. You know, torus examples, tornadoes, rotating supercells, hurricanes, and the Earth's axis, galaxies, and then biogeometry can be used to help people. Here's a picture of a galaxy that I got off NASA's website. So you can see how it spirals. Well, same thing happens with atoms, Clint. We're all made of these atoms. I talked about that tonight. These are triangles located around the world. I don't know. Well, some of those places are more in water, but you know you have other ones out there too, and they're over water too. But it seems to be a pattern of geology. You know, you have three connected here within a triangle where planes and people and boats disappear and whatever else. And then see here you have the same thing, another triangle. And so there's a geometric pattern to all of it. So geometry plays a very big part. This map was created by Ivan T. Sanderson, and I think 1972, as I recall. And then we'll play EVPs and stuff is what I do. And I can play some in a minute. And then sensing energies. One of the way might be dowsing. Um, Does science provide all the answers? Is science always accurate in the field? Can it fully explain how humans acquire information through phenomena like telepathy and clairvoyance? No, they have no idea. But yet it's real. People have it. They do it, they use it all the time and talk about it. Same thing with love, by the way. And some people, Clint, may display what is known as cognitive dissonance concern any and most information presented here. So they can say, no, it's not real. So how do we deal with those people? Well, we make them think and say, you know what? What is cognitive dissonance? It's the mental discomfort experienced when a person holds two conflicting beliefs, values, attitudes leading to a motivation to resolve the inconsistency in their thinking process. So they can't deal with it, so it must not be true. And one subject, again, might be dowsing. And but you look at it, there's a Bovis chart used for many things to see how good it is, and pendulums are used on it. And I've seen people do it, and it tells you the good, the bad, the negative, and where the energy might be coming from to make the field of energy around objects that surround us all. You know, atoms display that. But anyways, um, energies known and unknown, detected and undetected, affect us all, seen and unseen. So geometry, we already know. Every atom is a form of geometry because you have a center, you have things spinning around it, you know, neutrons, electrons, protons, and whatever, you know. Then we talked about dowsing, and then I've got a story in here about Harold McCoy located a stolen harp with a map and a pendulum. He's a personal friend of mine, also Brother Mason. And there's an article in the paper that told exactly how he located a map, and he was used a map and a pendulum. And he's not the only one. You know, Dr. Richet, I don't know how to pronounce its French name, published a book on dowsing and fact, and it's trait de metaphysique or whatever, how the French pronounce it, which I don't speak French. But some petroleum companies hire dowsers. Gary Geller was well known for this. Millions of dollars doing it. So why would they pay him millions of dollars if he could produce a result?
Said, hi.
And then this is an additional document, a true document that people can go, typically have my book with me. I'll print it off and get to working on it here pretty soon. Of the CIA, this is the actual document you can find online, and it talks about how they use psychics. So the multiverse kind of sums it all up, you know. And when we talk about this stuff, we must consider all the possibilities known and unknown or unknown. I can't talk today. Not based on our understanding or reason. It just happens. You know, like telepathy, dowsing, clairvoyance, psychometry, reincarnation. These subjects are well documented within history. You know, ghost cryptids, UFOs, etc. You know, so we don't have the answers. So what are we left with? Once again, we're left with more questions than answers, and that's what the academia doesn't like, Clint. No, people don't know because they're not taught. You know, in Western academia, they're not taught this stuff because they can't explain it. They can't control it. You know, you know, there's evidence out there that with all of it, that sometimes there's missing time and maybe burns on the skin or cut marks or implants or elevated levels of EMF and whatever else, various radiation. No, I'm not talking about Bigfoot at this point in time, but I talk about parapsychology and cryptids. Certain accounts include telepathy, extraterrestrials, cryptids linked to UFO sightings. One of those would be Bigfoot, and other type of psychic phenomena are reported too. So that could be, um, maybe they linked to them and told them some future event. But telepathy is mind to mind communication, which is well documented in the Betty and Barney Hill case, and also with UFOs. So, can we as humans understand God and the universe or his creations? Not according to the Bible, right? Again, the earth is based on geometry, um, and our entire body is based on geometry with atoms. Everything is made of atoms that operates, in a geometric way. Everything, Clint, anything anybody can touch, it involves geometry because the atoms are connected. They share fields, they connect together. And it says everything is beyond everything that's beyond our understanding. The only way we're going to learn is by questioning, So I put question to understand and learn. And so these are some good examples. We have the galaxies out there, the triangles that I showed you, where people go missing throughout the world, Bigfoot, and there's a simple picture of an atom. So that's what we do, Clint, is we talk to people about this so they have a pretty good understanding of what's really going on out there. We don't know, Clint, but we can say whatever took them was probably made of atoms and was in our dimension or came into our dimension. So we can say that it's all about could be, placed in geometry. But a lot of people, what they don't want to do is they don't believe in, you know, whatever Bigfoot or UFOs. So in their mind, that can't be the answer. But when you're forced into a situation where you encounter a Bigfoot or a dogman or some other cryptid, um, you now have to reconcile with yourself and say, that is not a man in a monkey suit. And that's where it causes a lot of people, PTSD potentially in their life, um, because they have to deal with this real subject that has affected them. But I can maybe play a couple of EVPs. Let's see. You can see my screen, right? Okay, let's see. This one's pretty good. I captured this a few years ago. Um, and it shows interaction. People can say, "Oh, that's somebody that said it." No, EVP, you don't hear um, a voice. It's only captured on the recording, unless you're using a ghost box, and that's ITC. But here you go. It'll play.
If you're still behind me, would you please make another sound behind?
Hear that? I am still.
Would you please make another sound behind?
So I've got a bunch of them where they are interactive with us, plants. So a lot of people don't realize what you're really dealing with. But That's proof of the paranormal. If somebody wants to have a real paranormal experience, the way to go is trying to get these voices to respond to you, you know. And I've got a number of them saved here and there and everywhere um, with this kind of stuff, you know. So I've got a lot of them, Clint, that they happen. This one guy was kind of poltergeist. We talked about creating ghosts, and maybe people believe it, maybe they won't. I don't care. But I was there too many times and saw where this whistle sound would just manifest. But what you hear is like, and then you hear, rear, and within that whistle sound, you hear two more grunts. But I'll play it. You hear it? Play it one more time. So people say, no, that's not you. Okay, here we go. So, you know, if people get out and they do this stuff long enough, they're going to be convinced that all this stuff is real and all interconnected, Clint. And well, Bigfoot, I don't think had anything to do with that, but um, it just was I think it was probably more kind of poltergeist um, interaction, you know. So these things happen, Clint. We can't understand them. Um, it's just the way it works, you know. I've got um, a lot of years of experience. You know, I can show some Bigfoot tracks if you want to see some. Um, this is some that I found on a property where I was deer hunting, and I didn't have a tape measure with me, and they were about 6 feet apart. And this is where it was on basically dead grass. It was, you know, basically flat, and you can see the form there. And then this is on inside about knee-high grass here, and about 6 feet apart. One I captured. Yeah, this is on rocks, and what you typically find, Clint, is that they almost lean when they walk, um, and so you can see kind of a toe there. But I couldn't. It was on wet ground. I couldn't even make a footprint, you know. But it's in Bigfoot area, you know. Um, that's the owl that tried to fly in the window, and then this is the Bigfoot track. Um, that I got. Um, you can kind of see it, the same thing here where it's kind of mashed down and whatever, and kind of a little bit of toe prints. And it was about 11 inches. Sometimes you find it by themselves. And then this is one that, or I measured it, the same one over here next to it. I measured it, and you can see it's about half as wide as it is long, which is pretty standard. And then this is a tree limb. It was snapped, and you can see that it's a clean break. If it was stress related, um, it would splinter, but you don't see it. That's a clean snap. So it's not real big around, but you know, I don't think a deer is going to break it. They're going to rub on it. There's no cows there, you know. And then this is one with a twisted branch. You can see it right there. It's twisted, but the rest of the tree is basically okay. So how is it that that bigger branch is twisted? There's no cows around. But those are the things that Bigfoot does, I had to mark part of it out because I didn't want to give the bearings, because if you got the bearings, somebody could go straight there. And then this is another track I found in an active Bigfoot area on a very graveled road. You can see all the gravel around, and you see that push up there again. So you can kind of see the toes there. I tried to step right next to it on both sides. I weigh 170 pounds, Clint.
At Stephanie Gill 9529 said,
and why would somebody
hello.
be out? You can see all the rocks there. Why would somebody be walking around barefooted? Why? When nobody's going to find that print. Well, is anything in particular that they want to know? This is the same print, Clint, and you can see that it's almost 4.5 inches wide and 11 inches long almost. So that's right on par with Bigfoot tracks, but you can see how rocky it is. So, yeah. Anyways, so what's the question with Bigfoot? Well, here's the thing. You have to look at all the evidence out there, and a lot of people don't know the evidence, not making fun of people. But, you can go around the world, and here we call it Bigfoot and Sasquatch. Sasquatch is the Indian name, and that the tribes
at
have.
Stephanie Gill 9529
we didn't know Bigfoot until
said,
after
Bro has Minecraft.
1958 or so. And so then the Roger Patterson film came out in 1967, and it wasn't Bigfoot. It wasn't the name. They didn't know what it was. But most people around the world will call Bigfoot Wild Man or Hairy Man. And then you go to places like China, they call him, Yeti in some places in Asia, or Yeren. And you go to Russia, they call it the Maste. You go to somewhere like Pakistan or Afghanistan, they're going to call him a Bomaroo. In Australia, they call it the Yowie. So why is it that they all say the same thing? A lot of them say they'll kidnap women and children mostly. And we have footprints from all over the world that you can compare and look at. So something's going on. There's a lot of recorded history about these things, even in pictographs, that the Indians drew of them. And it's funny when you look at them; they're all kind of the same thing. And typically, they have these large creatures, and they look like big tears or something running down their face. And they say they don't know what they are, but a lot of times people will report them with red eyes. And so that or yellow glowing eyes. And I've got a picture of here. Let's see. Paranormal pictures. Okay. So you've got this picture here with an unknown entity looking at our window when they had the LTRS, and it seems to have depends on your filter and whatever, but it definitely has glowing eyes. Some would say red, some would say yellow or orange. Well, it depends on what computer you're looking at. Depends on your eyesight. If you're color blind, it can play a part. So we have all these entities that are out there, and that's not the only entity. There's all kinds of entities out there that are recorded throughout history, from Dogman to ghosts to vampires to little people. So we've got all these things out there, and there's history that goes behind them showing that absolutely these things were real. So here in the West, we don't deal with it like they did back then.
At Stephanie Gill
And we live further inside the
9529
city, so we may have
said,
some exposure,
what kind
but
of
not like the
Bigfoot?
guys that were living in the country and seeing these things on a daily basis. You know, and I can show you um, a footprint of a cryptid, I believe, that I dealt with, and that's right here. And what I saw um, was a large black cat, and I shot at it, and you can see it's almost like claw marks there. And when I, yeah, well, I think what they're going to do is, if they want to do anything, Clint, you know, you can go out and you can try to find them, but if they don't want you to find them, you're not going to find them. You know, so yeah, that's just the way it works. Well, here's the thing, Clint. Um, these things are highly intelligent, for one. There's things they know about you, whether people believe it or not. That's okay. I don't care. But they seem to be telepathic. Um, you know, and that means they can read your mind. So when you're out there and you're trying to find them, they know they've already found you. So if they want to reveal themselves to you, they will. But I think the biggest motivation that they would have to find somebody is the fact that we don't want you here, so we're going to let you know we're here. You know, and I think that would be their motivation in most cases. So they're very difficult to find, Clint. I mean, people have been out there for, you know, 10 years sometimes. Maybe they glimpsed them. Um, very few people ever get a chance to take a picture. So, you know, I wouldn't really mess with them. Well, let me ask you, Clint, is she doing it because she wants to learn, or is she having problems with them?
At Stephanie Gill 9529 said, must be rare.
So she's inquiring like evidence that says they're real. If she's looking at that, you can go. Um, look at some of the people. Tell her to look up Sierra Sounds and Ron Moore, and there's plenty of evidence out there. It just depends on um, what you want to look at. A lot of people ignore the facts. Bigfoot has their own language. There have been people that have been linguists that look at the Sierra Sounds and such, and they say, it's not something that somebody made up. They're too big. The sounds are too big for a human to make. They can't go that low in frequency or that high. And so there's a lot of information that people just totally don't know about and disregard. So you've got these large animals, if you want to call it that. We can say the same thing. So they got these large animals that are twice as big as a human, that are making frequencies that humans can't make. So they know it's an animal that did it, and it's a real sound. It wasn't generated by AI, and so they know that. So there's plenty of evidence. It just depends on how far you want to look. And a lot of people come up with simple questions, say, "I don't believe," but that's because they haven't got in there and really examined the evidence that's there. I don't care if she wants to come in and talk. I mean, that's great. Just be respectful. It's okay to doubt some things, but you want to come in here and call names and whatever. I get enough of that. I run a page on Facebook of 27,000 people. And so if people have genuine questions and concerns, I'll try to answer them, Clint. But if they want to come in there and tell me I'm an idiot and they know more than I do, I'm done with them. These are the same people that never have investigated and spent one day in the field, but they know everything. Yeah, you can do that, I guess.
At NWS1KC. Said. https://discord.gg.
Well, I do on Facebook, but I don't anywhere else. So some things I do, some things I don't. Yeah, I know about Scott Carpenter, but I don't know him. I know his son, T-Carb. We're friends on um, Facebook, and then him and I were on that last channel you and I were on before, getting in Discord. So Scott Carpenter's son, um, I've talked to him, but never talked to Scott except in um, kind of Facebook chat or YouTube. So here you go. Okay, let's see. They got to unmute their mic. But they can join if they want to talk. They can. If they have a question, they got to unmute their mic if they want to. It's Dab. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 8, or 486. So I don't know what they're asking. They can ask if they want. Hang on, Clint. Let's see. Mhm. So, they're asking what kind of Bigfoot do you think is? I don't know what that think is, but um, according to most, the DNA says they're related to humans. You know, they have female human DNA, but the father's unknown. No, that's what I'm just put in the chat for the person. Well, it depends on where they have them at, Clint. I mean, if somebody, has an encounter with a bombaroo in Pakistan, there's really not much I can do, you know. I don't know anybody in Pakistan that investigates these kind of things, But, here in Oklahoma, um, I know plenty of people that investigate Bigfoots and whatever. But, you know, um, if you live, you know, 5 hours away, that's a lot of gas money for people. So depends on where somebody lives, Clint. You know, Brian Terrell probably not going to drive to Houston, Texas. You know, so um, that costs money. Everything costs money, Clint. Um, You know, I don't know, but, depends on what you wanna present, you know? Um, well, you don't really research, so, you know, if you're gonna put anything about Bigfoot, you might be considered somewhat an enthusiast, you know, 'cause you've never gone out in the field, you've never conducted research, so you don't really have any evidence, and so, you know, you can't say you research if you don't do it. Even like me, I'm an investigator, but I didn't ever investigate anything. Can I be an investigator? And if I um, have never investigated anything, how am I an investigator? So once people find out you've never done it, Clint, they're going to say, "Okie dokie, I think this person's been smoking something, or you're misrepresenting yourself." And that's what I've tried to warn you against. You know, well, what you got to do, the first thing you have to do, Clint, and I've done this stuff for over 40 years now, investigating the paranormal, and the first thing you got to do is learn and take in knowledge, and then get with other investigators and say, "Hey, let's compare notes. Have you experienced this? What do you know? What do you think? What tools are you using? Oh, so I'm not going to use a car horn, um, you know, or what do you use one? You got to get a hold of the people that do it, and you have to get out in the field, and you have to have the right tools." So, best, Clint, you're an enthusiast. You say anything other than that, people are going to look at you, and you will have no credibility, none. Yeah, that's what I would say, and let it go at that. You're curious. You could come up with the name Bigfoot Curious. How do you learn? Um, Typically, people learn things when they get curious. They inquire. You Bigfoot Inquirer, something like that. You're trying to learn, but if you present yourself as somebody that knows and you don't know, you're just shot your foot in credibility, and nobody's going to want to, talk to you. Well, we'll talk about it later, you know. But go ahead, Clint. Clint, that's the whole thing that a lot of people don't do is, there's a lot of people I've seen back when I worked at a hunting store. They go in and let's say they're going to hunt deer. They go and buy a good deer rifle. There's a lot of good calibers, that you can hunt with. For a 243 um, to a .6 and even bigger. And so it depends on where you're going to hunt, and whatever, how far of a shot you got to take. Some guns are better than others. Um, so you pick the right gun, and then you got to wear your orange and whatever, and hat and vest, and you got to buy your hunting clothes and boots and whatever else. And then you learn that you got to put those boots on right, and have on the right socks for the weather conditions when it's cold or raining, and you learn as you go. And everything in life that you're going to do, you learn as you go. And at this point in time, you have none of that. And so a lot of people, Clint, they get curious and they think they know, but it's not until they put time in the woods, that they quickly learned they really didn't know much. Same thing with fishing. And so a lot of people, they think it's just pretty easy. Just go buy a fishing pole and a couple of weights and some hooks, and I'm ready to go and some bait. Well, all right, do that, and then you find out you can't cast the thing and get it where you want it, and you get hung in the tree. Same thing, Clint. You learn as you go. Everything in life is learn as you go. Driving a car. Okay, so Deb says, cool, but if there's something related to humans, how big are they? Like, would they be big, or are they small like humans? So that's a good question. So I'm going to tell them, according from what I understand, DNA, okay, according to DNA, it's the same things as in dogs. Small ones and big ones. They're all over, Clint, you know? So what I'm getting at is that the DNA that they've looked at, you know, they're more prone to be hairy and large. And that is they have to build their shelters, and we do too, but we have saws to cut this and do this and pick up big rocks, and so that's why they're so much bigger than humans. You know, their arms are longer, and they're much stronger than we are, you know. So we're on the small end of the scale, you know. I the Bigfoot I saw, Clint, was I would say at least 10 feet, if not bigger. You know, there's no 10-foot humans that I know of in existence today, you know. In fact, if anything, in some cases, we could have been bigger, but now we're smaller, you know. Do what? Well, there's trees, Clint, that are as big as round as me, you know, and I got like a 34-inch waist, something like that, 32, 40, 34, something like that. And so there are trees that are that big around that Bigfoots have pulled them out of the ground, okay, and then I guess broken off some of the branches or just stuck it back in the ground upside down. You know, so you're talking about something that we perceive it as strong, but what if they have psychic gifts and are able to maneuver things and rearrange the atoms somehow and make it lighter through vibration? Maybe they can create a vibration that something that weighs 100 pounds now weighs 5 pounds, and are able to move that object. We don't know, Clint, at this point in time. There what we have when you talk about the paranormal is there's more questions than we'll ever have answers. But like I did in my presentation, there's alternate realities called multiverses, and there's quantum physics that come into play, and sciences acknowledge those. So I would challenge people to look at those things and see, is there a way that Bigfoot can use these gifts that we once had, like building pyramids with all those big blocks. Maybe it was something they did that lightened them somehow in weight. And so there's a bulbosphere that was found, I think, in Colombia or somewhere down south in South America. And the guy that found it, there was video of this thing floating around, and it's about the size of a basketball, I think, somewhere in there, and it's floating in the air. And so somehow it crashed. I think it may have came in contact with an electrical line and crashed. I can't say for sure, but I've looked at it and this is what I hear. So we'll just go with that. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. Willing to admit it. But anyways, it's on the ground. So this guy picks it up and he takes it and he starts investigating. There's weird signs and things on it. You can look it up on YouTube. And so they weighed it, and what they found was that the thing weighed like 6 pounds or something, and then as time passed, it started getting heavier. So that should highly suggest that this thing has some sort of a frequency that would vibrate the atoms that made it somewhat anti-gravity, So we don't know exactly how it happens. We don't understand. But there's some sort of technology that's involved we just don't understand. But now the thing weighs like, I think somewhere around 10 pounds. So it went from, we'll just say 6 pounds to 10 pounds. So it's like it was able to float in the air, but once it hit the ground and it started losing its energy and its propulsion system, it now takes on weight. So there has to be something there that made it float, right? So we don't know what that is. There's probably some scientists somewhere working in a dark lab that know, but we don't know, So what it boils down to, Clint, is we don't have that understanding. The average person, it was ridiculous when you go back and study. I've got all kinds of paranormal books. I'll just open it up and show people. Then this is kind of some of the books I have. Let's see. So there you go, folks. That's some of the books that I've read, over the years. Things like Abominable Snowman, biogeometry, all kinds of things, and I've got more. I've got a bunch of them on the shelf too, articles and whatever. So I would say I know more than the average person by far, but I can't say that I know everything. But some of this represents stuff like this. Clint, you can still see my screen, right? Okay, so this is a CIA document that's coming up. Anybody can write it down, take a picture, and you can see what it talks about. Write it down. And it talks about the pineal gland and why we have psychic gifts. All this stuff, and where it's found is called the third eye. And the research they did with psychics is spies, and a lot of people just say, wait a minute, and it explains a lot of things from the Big Bang Theory. This is stuff you're not going to learn in school, people, Yes, that was released. You can see here, this all involves geometry. Everything involves geometry, whether people want to admit it or not, it's because they don't know, Clint. They haven't been told. So there's a lot of things that we don't know. I mean, quality of consciousness. We noted earlier that the out of body state involves projection. And it says that a major portion of that energy pattern represents human consciousness. That it may move either freely throughout the terrestrial sphere for the purpose of information acquisition, right? Or into what? Other dimensions outside of time and space. But it's all there. These are the things that I study, Clint. It's a lot of things that you're never going to hear of. You're never going to hear this in college, because once you reach that mindset and you can look at anything and know what's really going on, out of body, it talks about out of body right here at the top, you're going to know everything, and nobody's going to be able to lie to you, especially the governments. You understand, Clint? I mean, yeah, I have all that stuff, Clint. I've studied it for years after the Oklahoma City bombing, but here's the CIA report right here. People can write it down, take a screenshot with their phone, look it up, and you'll see for yourself. I mean, so, this is the kind of thing I talk about. I just don't talk from my ass. I've researched this stuff for years. A lot of people have opinions. A lot of people do. And their opinions invalid. Why? Because they don't have any facts to substantiate their beliefs. And that's what we have now in the Western world. We don't have really research. We don't have education. We have indoctrination from those that control our countries. They tell us what to think and how to think. If you don't, you're screwy. So you have to question everything, and I certainly do, and that's why I've learned, Clint. And then there's things like we talk about dowsing, the EVP manual I studied and had to use to get my certification in parapsychology. Victor Zamet, his book's really good. People should look him up. He wrote this book and he said, in the last 25 years, mankind has learned more what happens when we die than learned in all earlier periods of recorded history. And that's by scientist George Meeks, who communicated with those in the afterlife. So, you can see these are some of the things that is in this book. And the guy that wrote this book was a lawyer who studied all of these things from EVP, which I did the same thing. I put a lot of work into it. ITC, the skull experiments here, Einstein. So, I'm just not talking off and from my ass, Clint. I know what I'm talking about. I've researched this. A lot of people have not. So my whole goal is to share with people, even reincarnation, answering the closed-minded skeptics, So there you go. I mean, that's 2 books that would spend the average person probably 2 months reading, So I have, remote viewing was listed up there. So there's other books, Clint, that are out there, like the 8th Tower PDF by John Keel. He was the one that studied the Mothman. And he talked about these 8 towers that are out there and whatever else. I mean, other things, things that I have too that I'm just trying to help people, and learn. So, you know, people can go forth and know the truth. The book of Enoch, I have it. Um, Whatever. And of course, this is the event that when I spoke in Halloween, Strange Oklahoma, which is the Facebook page, and I'm the main admin there, so people can look me up. And we talked about this, and I went over that presentation with some of you guys tonight. So there you go. The guy that spoke on cryptids here, good friend of mine. I've had him speak with me when I did ghost tours, but I don't do this, Clint, for my own benefit, and I'm not trying to make a name for myself or make money. What I'm trying to do is help people come to terms when they have these experiences with different entities. That's my whole goal. So I think somebody may have put something in the chat. I don't know. So let me see. Okay. If they have the size of dogs and big, would they attack? Well, they could be very large. I would say most often, Clint, a Bigfoot's not going to attack somebody unless they have a reason. But there are some of the Indian tribes that here in America and other places that they don't trust them. But the Cherokee Indians here in America and others traded with them. You know, so what do you want to know? No, they're going to just walk away from you, Clint. Typically, let me tell you, they don't want to interact with people whatsoever. Sometimes they do, just to let people know we're here. Okay. Um, so most of the time they're going to walk away. But if you went way out in the woods, 400 miles from nowhere, and you couldn't get phone signal because there's no towers out there in the mountain, they might kill you. And the message would be, we're going to take this guy out because we don't want him returning here. So if they go missing, they never find you. They don't go back, and they may make some calls and whoops or whatever. I don't know, Clint. It may not be Bigfoot, it may be Dogman or some other cryptid. So we can't blame everything, um, you know, on Bigfoot. In my opinion. I wouldn't go kill. I would just scare you off. Well, let's just go with this, Clint. Let's say you're a soldier and you never were, and you have to make that decision whether to kill somebody or not. And so there's factors that would come into play, like just imagine whatever country you're in, and there are certain characteristics that tell you it's a friendly and or a foe. So you got to identify friend and foe, and they have to make that call. And I think they're able to sense us and know what we're about. This guy's asking about Thunderbird. It was called a haunted place, or just rumors. So it might be haunted. Well, he's asking if like Thunderbird um might be haunted, you know. So it might be, you know. But anyways, I'm going to get off here in about 10 minutes. Yeah, you know, that's the thing, Clint. I mean, all this stuff, whether it's Bigfoot, you know, aliens, a lot of people see um, they have encounters with, you know, some sort of glowing lights in the sky, UFO type lights or UFOs themselves. And then later, a lot of people have encounters with Bigfoot, you know. So it's all connected, you know, weird lights and perhaps cryptids and other things, Clint. It's could be kinetic activity, like things go moving by itself. Um, you know, they hear sounds and maybe feel things or cold spots. So all that stuff is connected, you know. Um, in the end, Clint, and I mean, I've experienced all of it in my lifetime. Never had a Bigfoot in the house, but certainly ghosts. And where I live now, it's haunted. I mean, you know, the other day, got up and there was candy in the wrappers all over the floor, and lights get turned on. There's all kinds of things that happen, but none of it's bad. And you know, I'm not the only one. You know, some people come here and they experience these things, and some don't. You know, so what are they looking for? I think, Clint, that they can sense our energy and perhaps pick up on it, and then decide what they have to do with us. You know, maybe play with you, scare you away. You know, kind of like we do to people hiding around the corner and go boo. And there's people that don't scare easily, and there's people that do. So, you know, everything is made a decision, Clint. Whether it's Bigfoot, Dogman, um, or some other cryptid, you know, uh, ghost, whatever, you know, just name it. Little people, they have to decide what they're going to do. And you may never know why they did it and don't understand, you know. So, but you know, I've been doing, you know, paranormal investigations, um, as pros investigations for 22 years now, Clint. I've seen it all. You know, we used to go every weekend and go up there and investigate. You know, even when it's cold like it is now, there were times that it was um, 20 degrees inside the building and 10 degrees outside. You know, and it would drop down to 3 degrees that night. I remember one time. That's pretty cold, Clint. And it was crazy, you know. And there were times we got nothing, absolutely nothing, and then other times we would have experiences. And then when we do ghost tours, you know, um, pros used to do ghost tours back in the day, and I think I still have. I don't know if it's in here or not, where I put something up about ghost tours back in the day. I've got all kinds of things in here. Let's see. I don't know if I have it anymore. May put it in a pros file um, that we had, you know. But anyways, I think this is it. 2011. So, you know, I can enlarge that some, Clint. You can see some of it. I'll make it bigger. So this is what we used to do. We would do public investigations, and we'd let the people that came to our investigations. This is 2011, so now we're in 2026, so you can see how much time has passed. But we would have people come in and talk to them just like I'm talking to you, and then we would let them operate the tools and do a question and answer session, and they would be part of our research, So it's $20 a person back then, Clint, and we stopped doing that because we lost the building, but we never made money on it really. We just paid the bills. We had to have electricity in the building. You can see there's light shining on the floor, and we had to have a system in there,
at
sound system and
NWS1KC,
live cameras.
said,
So we had to pay a cable
good.
bill, electricity, and whatever else. And so, Clint, I had a lot of time to learn, and it's just the way it was, My buddy Tony, he did all the booking for us, but we did that for many years, and probably 5 years, I'll say something like that. We had 7 years we had live cameras, so we probably did it more than 5, probably closer to 7 or maybe even 8. I can't remember now. But, my whole goal is to help people, Clint, and I'm not making any money at this, It's just the way it is, and I'm just here to help people, and that's my whole goal is to help people, But I do ghost tours and things like that. And here's a picture of a ghost tour that we did at Fort Reno, with some people, And I've got other ones. Brian Terrell, yeah. And then here's Brian Terrell and his daughter. That's Makai, my grandson. That's me, there. And we didn't have a real big grip, but you can see it's kind of cool. I had on a kind of a heavy shirt and wore my vest and had a flashlight in my hand, So it's a good thing to take. The fort makes money. I don't, but the fort does when we do it, and the money goes into reconstructing the buildings and whatever. So it's a good cause. This is why I do it, Clint. I'm here to help people and help the fort and help people that have problems. This guy here, Brian Terrell, in the picture, to the far left. I don't know if you can see my cursor. I think you probably can. But Brian, he had a Bigfoot encounter, and then he started asking questions, and that's how he got into Bigfoot research. So now he runs a team called Red Dirt Cryptids. And that's all I'm about, Clint, is helping people. And I could get into some of the other stuff I do. No, I have it in the other room, but um, he did write a book, and I've got all kinds of stuff here. I have many interest in many things, and whatever. And so I'm a questioning person, and I've learned a lot, just like I can maybe play one of these for a minute. Um, these are some of the stuff that I did kind of early on, you know. Yeah, it was like 20 years younger, Clint. I mean, we started it in 2004, so this is 22 years later, Clint. You know, and then these are some of the videos that we have of the LTRS. Um, the long-term research, site. And so there's a lot of things, Clint, that I've done, and over the years, you know. I don't know if it'll play, and
All right.
this is old school.
Farewell.
So we're walking through the building, the LTRS, you know, and we got infrared and things, but it's not as clear because but you can see it's kind of grainy, right, Clint? You know, we have an IR camera, and there's the lights that we use. Now you see how you see those. Let me go back a little bit. And this is what I'm trying to tell people, Clint. And you see those 3 lights there? Okay, that's pretty common in the field. And it's because of the curvature of the lens camera that's doing this. So people capture that, and you can see it playing when you play it, and these 2 lights here disappear, right? And so what happens is, right there, you stop it, you see it, and if you got that in a picture and you're walking and you don't see the light source behind it, you're going to think that's an orb. And so most orbs are nothing more than artifacts created by light. And so these are the things that we would take people in and train back in the day, and they had to have, at least to be a full pros member, they had to take the parapsychology course that I took, so they'd know about the paranormal, and then they had to go through and come to the site and take the training. So when they got something like this in the picture, they knew that there had to be a light source to create that. But you got a lot of ghost hunters out there, even to this day, that will argue with you and say that's a spirit orb. I mean, you know, Clint, it's just the way it is. And people won't use critical thinking or question their evidence. And because you don't believe them, and you say that's probably light reflection, then they attack you. But, you know, it just got ridiculous back then, that, you know, people were watching all the ghost hunter films, but you can see all the artifacts there. Yeah.
Probably here is down below us.
He has what? Yeah, if you could probably, I don't know if you can copy and paste it. You can copy and paste it here if you want me to read it. He's talking about Grover Krantz. Is this a person asking a question? Okay. Well, you can play it, I guess. I don't, I don't, I mean, I think if I come there, I can see it. I don't see it, Clint, but anyway.
At Victor TH4QS said,
Let's see.
most don't know of.
You got several names down here, but I can click on it and really not doing much, Clint. It may be because I'm live streaming and whatever, I don't know. Okay, there's this one. Is that it? Okay, that's your stream. Okay, I don't know. But give them mine and they can come in here, Clint. I don't know. Right here. Okay. Says open voice chat. Okay, it's only going to do mine, I guess. But anyways, just tell them you get back with them, and you can ask me later, and you can contact the guy. This is this. Anyways, Clint, I guess I'm gonna get ready for bed. This guy's. Well, invite him over here. You know. Let's see messages. Yes, somebody sending me messages, but yeah, Clint, that's the whole thing. A lot of this stuff. There's a lot of people that um, they're not involved like they should be, and they're not being thoroughly educated. And that comes with experience, and a lot of people don't. But yeah, Clint.
At
I think I got your YouTube channel
NWS1KC
now. You sent it to me in
said,
Facebook. So
https://discord.gg.
YouTube. It says contact while doing survey in the woods, Southwest Washington, Grover Krantz. I know about Grover Krantz. Yeah, I've got some writings that he did.
At Victor
And he used to
TH4QS
speak out.
said, I did have indirect.
Yeah, I know about Grover. I think it was an anthropologist. Yep. Yeah, I know about him. Well, yeah, I mean, I've got it on YouTube on my phone. He said I did an indirect contact, Southwest Oregon, working as a forest ranger, 2 million acres through rocks and ground at me, and that happens, Clint. Absolutely. I had the same thing happen, Clint, back in 1983, and we were survivalists back then, and we had all kinds of guns and things, and in the woods, and something. My buddy and I, we decided to go out and hunt a rabbit, and so we go out and we're in camouflage, full moon night, and we're walking to this little wheat field, and we're looking for rabbits, thought we'd shoot it and eat it, And so, next thing I know, we start hearing
At
whistling in the woods.
NWS1KC.
Well,
Said,
we didn't know that Bigfoot whistled back then, there's very little information
www.youtube.
about Bigfoot. You had to get a book like Reader's Digest or go to the local library or school library, but there wasn't much material on Bigfoot. So nobody talked about that, So all of a sudden we're hearing like three people or whatever
At
we assume
Victor
were people were whistling
TH4QS.
at us. We're in the
Said,
middle of
I
this
did speak
wheat
with
field,
MR.
and all of a sudden, we decided to go into the woods, and it threw a rock in the water or some large object. We got the heck out of there and went back into the guys at camp. And so it wasn't until years later that I realized that Bigfoot throws rocks, Oh.
At Cert Instructor on 4050.
Anyways,
Said, good deal.
So a lot of people have encounters, and what we have to really look at is psychologically, when somebody runs into something they didn't believe in, be it a dragon or Santa Claus, it shocks them, and they have to question, is it real or is it not? And they really look at it and say, well, psychologically, I've never seen a human that's 10 feet tall, and it's looking down at me, and so nobody told me about this thing. So this thing, either it exists or it doesn't, but it's standing in front of me, and maybe I'm crazy, and maybe this and maybe that, And so they don't go back and they don't want to say anything to their friends, but they know what they saw and what they experienced, Clint. And a lot of times these people have a form of what we'll call PTSD. They're trying to reason it all out and find out what they ran into because it wasn't a human in a monkey suit. And by the way, maybe they saw some tracks, or maybe it wrecked a tree out of the ground or something, And so with that said, they have to struggle with that and come to terms with it. And, back when I was a kid, Clint, nobody talked about this stuff openly like we do now. You kept it to yourself, But that's the thing, Clint, is that a lot of people have these problems, and people laughed at them, made fun of them, and I've been there and done that. When I seen things like Ghost and with my twin brother, and the little person that ran from us that was about knee high and dressed like an Indian. And, we grew up as Indian students, more or less. And so we knew that stuff could be real because we heard about it so many times, and other stories too. And you couldn't just go around talking about that stuff with people. And that was the way it was, Clint. You just couldn't do it. You didn't do it. And so what happened with these people is they had to keep it to themselves and tell very few family members. And then if you told a family member, they would probably think you're using drugs, So if you tell Aunt Betty, she's going to tell her friends and say, well, by the way, my nephew or whatever, he thinks he saw Bigfoot. Are you kidding me? Yeah. So all of a sudden, everybody no, you told Aunt Betty and maybe Uncle Jim and somebody else and Grandma. You don't know where exactly it leaked out at, but now everybody knows and thinks that you're a dingbat and a cuckoo clock, with a missing cuckoo. You're that cuckoo. And so that's the way people are treated. But now it's okay. We can talk about it. But we didn't have the information and we don't have the details about Dogman and Bigfoot that we have today. And all the research has been combined on the internet. Put anything you want in the internet and find out information. And so it's a lot better now than it was 30 and 40 years ago, Clint. And it was just said that back then, if you have one of the experiences, that you were probably been drinking, smoking pot or something, or a drunk Indian. That's just the way it was back then. What, Clint?
At Victor TH4QS said, I have an encounter.
Is he on your YouTube? That's the whole thing. A lot of this stuff, there's a lot of people. Well, there's a guy that I was looking at. There's live chat and whatever. So one person's watching, 3 likes, and 1 viewer. So, anyways, that's all we got at this point in time. But yeah, so these are the things, Clint, that there's only so much that we can do to help people, and that's my whole goal. So, I'm going to be at the Bigfoot Enigma Research Center, speaking there for on the 28th of next month, and I'm going to talk about this stuff in the woo and all the things that go along with Bigfoot. So. Well, you can look up Tanya's the Bigfoot Research Center and just link it on your page. I've got it on my webpage, Rose Investigations. Um, I can't look at it at this point in time, Clint, but people can look at my webpage too and see it's called prosinvestigations.com. It's been up for I think 22 years now, so. Yeah. Anyways, Clint, so the whole thing is that, um, there's a lot of people that have questions. So we've got 1 viewer. I think it's about time to say goodnight and go from there. So, yeah, well, you know, we could do different things, Clint, and we could look at doing, um, we could look at doing, other stuff that I showed you in that folder. We could talk about, CIA research and parapsychology or, you know, um, whatever, I can cover it all, as you well know. So, but anyways, yep, there's Nate. I can see him in there. He's probably working.
No, I'm off work.
Hey,
I'm
Nate.
trying to figure out the push the talk button.
Oh, okay. Well, I did a deal on a Bigfoot channel for a friend of mine tonight and spoke there some, and I did my presentation for Clint and some of his people, and I just put together this Discord so we could talk about anything, kind of like Art Bell, anything from the weather to whatever, uh, to paranormal stuff and whatever. So um, we can talk about search and rescue and hunting and fishing and whatever, So I can handle it all. I think did it before, So, anyways, how are you doing, Nate?
I'm doing all right. You just can't rest, can you, Ron?
No, no. And it's funny because I had a lady call me today and wanted me to take a couple of dogs and kind of foster the dogs. I'm like, no, I'm gonna be doing some traveling, and I got a friend that came down, well, up to Oklahoma City, and he went to another friend's house in Wyoming. So he wanted to leave his dog with me, and I'm like, okay, you can leave the dog, and he did. And the dog stayed with me 10 days. I love dogs, but I don't want any more dogs. And I plan to travel. I'm fully retired now. So I'm making plans to go. I don't know exactly where and when I'm going to go, but I don't want to track along with a dog, Um, they can be a little bit bothersome, not that I don't love dogs, but I don't want to, have to go to a hotel and stay overnight and then get up and go let out the dog in a couple hours or, whatever. You know how that works. So I'm just like, no more dogs,
Yeah, I hear
At
you.
Victor TH4QS.
No, I've been off work
Said,
since last Friday.
enough
They
of
shut down
this.
the base. I'm working out at Camp
Oh, wow.
Gruber now, and they finally told us that they're opening the base tomorrow, so I got to go back to work tomorrow night.
Yeah. And tomorrow is what? Thursday, right? So,
Yeah.
yep. So I don't know. And I hear we're supposed to get snow and stuff come Friday night or Saturday.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm hearing too, but I don't think we're going to get much over here on the east side of Oklahoma.
Right. I don't know either. So, anyways, I'm getting ready, I think, to shut it down and go to bed.
At
I've got to
Andy
get up
Cowley Ham
early,
Radio.
real early and do
Said, hi Clint.
so.
All right. Yeah, I just ate my breakfast pretty much, so I'll be up all night.
All right. Well, Nate, you take care, and I'm not going to run you off, but I'm going to go pass out and get some sleep and be ready for tomorrow. We'll probably start doing something on like maybe Thursday nights, because Fridays everybody wants to go out Friday, and then Mondays are pretty good, and Tuesdays, but a lot of people go to church on Wednesday, so 3 days of the week. That if you're going to do anything like this, it should be probably Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I'd be better off on Thursdays.
Yeah, and so that's what I'm leaning toward. I got a friend that he did like I said, a Bigfoot show, and he had me on there talking and about the paranormal and
At
parapsychology and whatever else.
NWS1KC.
And so
Said,
I tried to join his channel and leave options
https://discord.gg.
open, Anyways, but I'm gonna go ahead, Clint, and call it a night. And it's good talking to you today. Call me anytime. I think you have my number. And I was glad to hear that you were prepared. And a lot of people with these storms, they were totally unprepared. And for years I've been telling people get prepared. And they never listen, unfortunately. But I think you're one of the few that is truly prepared. You know.
Yeah, we stayed pretty warm here. Pretty much out of firewood now. I'll be buying some more on Friday.
I got it. Yeah, if you can ever pick it up free, get it. But anyways, so we're gonna call it a night, everybody, and love you all and take care. And we'll probably do this next Thursday. So if you're off, Nate, jump in, and if you have something to say or add to it, yeah, just jump in. So, I don't know what we'll talk about, but could be anything and everything. So.
Yeah, I got to work at midnight, so I should be available.
All right. Love you, brother. Appreciate everything you're doing, and I'm glad you're going to be, here if you can. But we'll probably do it around 7 o'clock, starting on Thursday, I would think.
Roger
I think
that.
that'd be pretty good time. All right, everybody. Good night, and take care. God bless. Remember what we talked about. If you want to stay informed, stay educated, read, investigate, and go with good sources. So that's all I got. All right. Good night, everybody. All right. God bless.
See you, Ron.
God bless. All right.
I'm all right. Just watching TV. Yeah, over in northeast Oklahoma, I pretty much got about 4 inches of snow. Yeah, we got like 3 more days this month.
Hello. Hello. Hello, hello. Test 1, 2. Hello. Hello. Hi. How you doing? Good. Hello, everyone. My name is Clint. We talk about. If you want to join the Discord, there's the Discord we in. We are in this Discord. join, you join the Discord. Is you can join us.
At NWS1KC. Said. https://discord.gg/42.
If y'all want to join this Discord, it's we talk about different kind of stuff. This is okay. How y'all doing? Good. Anyone can hear me? Okay. Anyone can hear me just fine. Let's maybe get this out. Meters. This is my user name. You want anyone want to join? And mine is welcome to mine. Oh,